So, welcome to the corridor. My name is Angel León, your host. Most investors have seen one side of the journey only. My guest today has seen both. Before she ever wrote a venture check, Laura Moreno Lucas was a managing director at Nasdaq, where she basically led the IPOs for Beyond Meat, Lyft, Airbnb, the RealReal, and maybe a couple other ones I may be forgetting. And she stood at that finish line. The bell, the public listing, the whole thing, right? That moment where a company becomes a household name, basically. Today, she's a general partner at Latitude Ventures, which is basically, I believe, the largest early stage fund in the country investing in US Latino founders, where basically she writes some of the earliest checks these companies will ever receive. She's a founder herself. She built and exited a company, and now she wrote a book as well called Latinas in VC, basically to bring more women into this world, of course. So she's seen and basically the entire ladder from the first check to that closing bell. So Laura, welcome to the corridor.
Thank you, Angel. I'm so happy to be here and, coming in live from Kauai.
Nice. Love it. Beautiful place. And you have one of the most enviable, I would say, seats in finance, right? You took Airbnb, Lyft, Beyond Me. You took all these companies public, and that's sort of like a mountaintop. And then from that, you move to the earliest stages, right, of the journey possible, writing those first checks into Latino founders. Why did you walk away from that finish line to go stand at the starting line again?
Yeah, no, that's it. Thank you for that question. I think what is important to understand is the capital markets journey, whether it's at the early stage or the later stage, what I call the entire capital ladder. Um, it's it's different, but it's the same. And what I mean by that is that at the later stage, you're looking to take companies public when you reach these billion-dollar milestones. But in essence, what you're doing there is a lot of what you did when you started the company. You're trying to reach a huge amount of people in a customer base, and you're telling the world, hey, I am here in a structured way where you guys can all be a part of my journey. And now you have to explain to them why, right? Why should they be a part of your journey? A lot of times you go on what's called a road show when you go out to meet investors to tell them why you believe you're ready to be a public company and why they should be a part of your journey before the IPO. And then after you're publicly listed, then you again go out and share that same story with the world on why they should invest in you. And that is the same thing that you do when you start a company at the pre-seed stage, right? Why should investors and why should your first customer be a part of your journey and how you're going to really solve the problem that you're set out to do? So I found it very interesting that even at the highest level, the
Hmm.
same process happens when you're
Yeah.
really trying to, bring people over to help them understand what you're building, how you're going to bring them along, and why they should be a part of your journey in the company, whether it's private or public. Of course, there's different risk levels. When you're a public company, you have the backing of Wall Street and the public markets. When you're private, you have the backing of the private market. So there's different infrastructure there, but essentially the story is the same.
Super interesting. And our audience already never or barely gets to hear this or see this from one single person doing all these things. You've seen that whole path, the seed, series A, all the way to the public listing. When you look at a Latino founder raising their first round today, what do you see that they can't see yet about the climb ahead of them?
You know, I think when founders, whether you're Latino or not, um, if you knew the journey that you had ahead of you, you probably wouldn't start the company. So one of the things that I consistently saw in let's just say, Brian Chesky, the founder of Airbnb, or Brian, the founder of, I don't know what it is with these Brians, but Brian, the founder of Lyft, or even, the founder of the RealReal, Julie. They're all incredibly passionate about the problem that they're solving. And that problem will change. The problem will change because the world changes.
Mm-hmm.
But the fundamental problem and how they're thinking about, they're so passionate about that they're not going to stop. And they will endure, different economic challenges. They will endure macro changes. They will endure, ups and downs. But solving that is so essential to them that they will just keep going in that aspect. So when you think about, how the RealReal started, it was a consignment model that they said, hey, we want to take more consignment and really start bringing that as a luxury option to the world, so that we have this recycle model that is part of the ecosystem, so that we don't have so much, fast fashion out in the world, and we have luxury good things that we're offering clients. And so she started that on a small scale. She brought it into retail. She brought it into a, national platform that was technology based. So she found all these mediums on how to do it and how to deliver that to the customer. But at the end of the day, the problem that she was trying to solve is that the fast fashion world and the luxury market, there is such abundance of stuff out there that can be usable for everybody. And we don't need fast fashion to solve this problem. We need to look at the things that we have, and we need to recycle them, reuse them, share them with the world. And that's still, the real today. It's bringing some of that luxury fashion to market and helping that recycle through our ecosystem, instead of going and buying more of the things that we don't need. And if you look at Airbnb, it started with basically couch surfing, and now it's, with being able to bring together in these incredible locations like Kauai. I'm in an Airbnb, right? And
Yeah.
you just, that he's still obsessed with that. How that's being offered has changed, how the world see that has changed, but he's still solving that, allowing people to move freely in these incredible places, and being able to do that on a broad scale. So I'd say that to any founder, it's really think about the customer you're serving, how you want to start this, and you have to have the passion to endure, because the times are going to change, and you have to change with them.
Interesting. And Latitude is basically one of the largest fund, right, of its kind specifically. And I know you're an advocate, and you've said it before, that Latinos are, one in four, basically, right, new entrepreneurs, and they drive a huge share of the GDP growth here in the U.S. So when a Latino founder comes to you, what actually makes you, lean in, right? And what's that thing you feel that you see too many of them get wrong?
So when Soul started Latitude Ventures, I joined shortly after the fund was founded. It was on the premise that, Latinos generally didn't have access to capital in a massive way. We'd get little checks here and there, but really to catalyze companies and be able to bring our solutions to market that were equally as sound as what others were bringing to market, we needed real capital. We needed $1 million checks. We needed funding that would help us scale and move through, again, that capital ladder ecosystem. And so with that investment in mind, and really looking at the ecosystem of Latino founders that were in the market, I mean, it was incredible to see the talent that was coming to us, and the solutions that they were trying to solve. Because what I was seeing is they were looking at it from a very different perspective. Because a lot of times they, were born in other countries, they're immigrants, they come to the US, and whether they're, first time in the US or, second generation, how they see the world is a little bit different. And so I think that at a baseline, understanding that and how they're approaching things and understanding some of the solutions that they're bringing, that creativity aspect of it, because we do have a creative aspect to how we solve problems, is sometimes cultural. We know how to address these things because we understand the culture behind what we're building. And so that's the thing that trust factor allows for. It's like, okay, whether it was a financial services solution that is helping to solve some of the unbanked in the world, right? We know there's so many people in the world that don't have the same access to banking products because of the requirements that you need to have that. But we understand that, and we can help find solutions to solve that. Or whether it's, healthcare solutions for our community that generally people don't have access to or have high premiums. So if you come to us with a innovative solution, we understand it and we understand the problem that you're trying to solve. So I think that's it. We understand a lot of the major problems that have been in our community and how our founders are thinking about solving them. And then once we understand that some of the other investors don't, because we just have the cultural nuance and understanding of our community, then you put everything else behind it. Can it scale? Is this a problem that we can solve? Can we support it? Can we help it become, a $1 billion company? And how is that going to be approached on a go-to-market strategy? How can we accelerate that go-to-market strategy? Well, how does our network unlock that? Because a lot of it, also is about the network that can help support these ecosystems. And so that is a major thing that I think, us as partners, as an ecosystem, has helped develop, because we have access to different networks that didn't, maybe founders didn't have. And so we can help unlock those opportunities and scale them quicker. So it was capital, it was network, it was helping these founders understand how to scale quickly and support them. And then with all of those things and resources, I think we have been able to invest in over 40 companies and now deploy $65 million that is being put to work out there and seeing these companies grow.
Very cool. And you're not just, an investor, like I mentioned at the beginning. You also build and exited your own company, right? And we see this a lot in VC, especially nowadays, right? A lot of these founders that exit companies, they turn VC, so they turn investors, right? And then they sort of want to give back. So I want to dig a little bit more into who you are as a founder inside the investor, and then how being a founder before and having gone through the entire thing to an exit changes the way you source and make decisions on deals today.
It's really important. And I think that's a lot of the reasons why founders become investors, is because we understand the challenges of scaling companies from zero to an exit. And there's so much that is involved besides just, raising money and having an opportunity on solving a problem. It's like people management, which is the biggest thing, um, then driving growth, all of these things. I think if you were to ask any one of the founders that, know me and that I've have a relationship with, I think that they would all say that I'm very trusted, I'm very transparent, and I empathize with their journey. So whether they, hit a roadblock and it's going to be something that's going to be challenging, I try not to come down on them for it. I try to find solutions to help them unlock what's going to happen next so that they can get past that. Because like what I said earlier, the world is going to keep moving and everything's going to change. And the only thing that you can do is figure out how to adjust the problem you're solving to the world that's continuing to move around you, and then finding solutions for that. So it's thinking about how to empower them to find the solution and giving them those options, and knowing that I'm a partner that they can, talk to in the worst case scenarios. Because I think a lot of times, maybe venture is seen as, hey, they only care about the returns. They only care about the returns, and the returns are the important, right? But how you approach that and communicate the challenges through what's coming and how you work through that, I think, is the most important. And that gets out really quickly, because once founders feel supported, then they bring other founders to you and they say, hey, work with this investor, because they are not only about capital, but they really help support you through the tough times. And everybody's there when you're making a lot of money, but when you have these tough times, it's who can you call, who can really help guide you through these tough times. So yeah, I think that that's one of the biggest things that I've learned is just got to be real. And it's not about judgment, it's just about what do we do when we're at these points that are real critical to a make or break moment. How do we show up for them?
And what's that thesis for Latitude Ventures, right? Well, what is the magic one perfect startup and founder you guys are looking for right now that you're investing in?
Yeah, so right now, just in terms of Latitude, so I'm part of Latitude Ventures Fund 2, which is $100 million. We've deployed the capital, so we're fully invested out of Fund 2. There's another fund that's going to be raised for Fund 3. I'm actually launching another fund called the Libra Fund, which was part of the Libra Leaders Network, which is a women's network that is builders and buyers. And what that means is we're bringing the builders, the startup founders that are women-led, and connecting them with the other side of the ecosystem, which is the buyers, which is whether you're in healthcare, whether you're in financial services or workforce solutions, we're connecting the dots there, because we understand that that's the best way to not only support the founders that are women, but also to help them scale and then help them get to market quickly. So that is Libra, the Libra Fund. And so that's a $50 million vehicle. We're looking to do our first close by the end of this year. And that's something that we're really excited about. And in terms of that fund, the way that we look at founders is there are three types of founders that we're very interested in supporting. And this is because there are so many of these coming to market and accelerating the growth in the sector of AI and automation. It's engineers that are women engineers, scientists that are women scientists, and former operators, people that are spinning out of these tech companies that are finding solutions that they're coming to the table with, that they can help scale and grow because they've seen the problems themselves operating in these roles. So those are the three types of founders that we're looking for, because we know that in that aspect, they have the ability to, we can help support them, whether it's with additional team members on the engineering side, on the scientist side, similarly on the operator side, because of the talent and the builders and buyer network that we're supporting, but also because we'll be able to help on, hey, how do you get this again to go to market quickly and connect the dots while you're scaling your business, which is, all founders need that guidance to really hit that enterprise level and start to go to the next stage of growth, which in the past, actually, women had not gone past Series A in a significant way. So I'm excited, even though I'm investing at the early stage, my whole thought in this is if we start connecting the builders and buyers, they will naturally be able to get through that growth stage, because there will be women on the other side that have the seniority that will help them pull through that capital ladder. So this is really exciting. Again, AI and automation is the key driver of a lot of this, but the industries that are being most impacted and have the biggest opportunity are healthcare, financial services, and workforce solutions when it comes to women that are building in these sectors.
Very cool. And in that topic, you wrote the Latinas in VC, the book. and
Mhm.
you basically spotlighted there 31 women investors. And most conversations focus on getting more diverse founders funded. But you went to the other side of the table, who's writing the check. What does that side matter just as much, right? And what did you learn from these 31 women that you?
Well, unfortunately, what I learned is not a lot of people knew who they were. And that was the biggest thing, that we need more visibility. Uh, with what I was trying to do there is, again, because I'm in the position that I am, I also was seeing a lot of opportunities, and these are incredible women that are building, Latinas or not Latinas, and would continue to see how overqualified they were, what an incredible company that they were building, but they weren't getting the funding for it. So I said, "Oh, hey, do you know, this other investor? That's what they invest in." And 90% of the time, they would say, "No, I don't know them." And I would be shocked, because they would name, all the mainstream VC funds, but they would never find these other women investors who had significant capital, who were looking at these deals, who were actually driving capital in these ecosystems. And it's because they didn't get the visibility. So the book is really a combination of not only helping founders find other women investors in our ecosystem that are Latina, but also highlighting these incredible Latina MVCs that have capital, that are actually deploying. And then in that visibility then would also then drive one step further, showing limited partners or institutional investors, here's a fantastic ecosystem that hasn't even hit your radar, because again, we don't get that visibility. You don't see us on CNBC, you don't see us in, major media. So this was a way for me to continue to highlight these incredible women that have capital, that are allocating, that are investing, and trying to connect all the dots. And that book has been incredible. It was supported by Silicon Valley Bank, and they've been a great partner. They've also agreed that we're going to continue that momentum and bring this into a digital format. So hopefully tell the stories of a lot of these women investors on a platform that we would be able to continue highlighting, their growth and what stage they are in now.
Very cool. And now it's very refreshing that you actually mentioned about the visibility, because that's something that I have experienced myself, specifically, with a lot of the Puerto Rican founders, as well from my side. That yeah, they don't know the community, and vice versa, right? And the community doesn't know them, and a lot of them just the same reaction that you had to me just sort of blew my mind. Like, how do you not know? The Latino VC ecosystem is not that big, so for you to like not know maybe one or two, okay, but for you to not know like most of it, and not know some of the top brands are out there, like Latitude, Chingona, right? All these different ones. It to me is mind blowing. Like how do you not find them? And to me that was very interesting, and I feel that it's also part of what Latinos were experiencing right now, in terms of access, right, to resources, and just access to be in the room. But not only that, again, just the connective tissue between that. So who's doing the work to connect one or the other? So if one doesn't go towards the other one doesn't go towards this one, then nothing happens. And that's one of the things that I actually wanted to build myself with Koki Ventures, is specifically that, try to build that connective tissue to start connecting founders more and more with the VC ecosystem, right? So it's very refreshing to hear that someone else is also, experiencing the same questions and the same conversations with these founders. And for you, as a venture capitalist, right, in the Latino world specifically, um, have you like what have you seen that has changed, right, in the past, let's say 5 to 10 years, that maybe Latino founders didn't have access to maybe 15, 20 years ago.
I mean, there's more of us. So there's definitely, when I was raising my startup, there was maybe one other person, and I'm going to name drop him, Jesse Martinez. He's in the Bay Area and now he's in Houston. That was it. I only knew one, Jesse Martinez, and that was it. And he was one running around trying to connect me. Oh, you don't know, there's this one Latina at Google. I'm like, oh, one Latina.
Wow.
I'm
Wow.
like, yes, please connect me to this one Latina.
You can't miss it, right?
And it was empty back then in 2009. And now, I mean, it's just there's more of us. There's more of us in venture. I mean, I was just talking to Jose from Somos VC, and how that community has grown. We didn't have a Somos VC.
Mm-hmm.
Like there wasn't a resource group like that. We didn't have an NAA. We didn't have an NAIC that focuses on our ecosystem. So it's all of these different organizations that have realized, yeah, there's growth here. They need to be supportive. There's capital, like I mentioned in that book. We are now allocators of capital, not only as investors but also in just just in terms of what we're doing here in the United States and how much we're deploying and consuming. So we are now at points in the economy where we are the drivers of the assets and the wealth creation. And so that's a very different narrative that we haven't been a part of in the past. And so that's why it's an incredible time for Latinos in the United States, because we have now reached different levels that we're able to actually influence how these things not only get invested in, but grown, driven, and then brought to the public. So it's exciting to see. I would love, just because of my time at Nasdaq, I would love to see more Latinos that IPO. And I know it's hard, but that would be great to see more Latinas, more just women in general. And once we start seeing that tide change and really tip the scales of capital, is what I always say on the Libra side, is then things I think will get better, and they are getting better. They've definitely changed. Even with women, there were no women resources back then, and now there's a lot of different resource groups. There's not enough. Do we need more? Yes. But it's, at least we're there on the other side to help address problems, to help strategize, to help how to grow, to help really drive. And we have to do that together. So the only other thing I would say to that is there are more, but we have to be aligned in the mission on what we're trying to build now that we're more, and we have to do it together, because there's too much of, hey, we can't have this scarcity mindset, because
Mm-hmm.
if we're only getting, this much of the bigger pie, we can't have that scarcity mindset. We have to get the bigger pie,
Period.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. I love that. Well, thank you so much, Laura, for taking the time today. I really enjoyed the conversation, learning about your journey, your story. Pretty powerful. And again, my goal with this podcast is to do exactly that: is to showcase women like you and founders like you and investors like you, that are doing things out there. And we hear a lot of the complaint, but one thing I didn't hear today was actually you complaining about anything, which that's one thing I love about people that just push forward, and just people that, okay, we get it, yeah, I know we're small, okay, so what are we going to do about it, rather than keep weeping right on the same thing. And I feel that's an attitude, that a lot of us have to adopt, that, yeah, we're small, yeah, this, yeah, that, whatever, we have this little one, okay, that's all sad and wrong in many, in many ways. But at the end of the day, we have a great community, Latinos. We're a pretty embracing community. We're a very loving community, and I feel that plays a big part in who we are as a race in general. and what separates us from a lot of other right background races out there as well. So I think that we should embrace that, and like you said, share more, communicate more, help more. There's so many opportunities as well that I feel a lot of people miss on because they just don't know about them. Like people in corporate world or people with specific expertise or skills or talents that they have no idea that they could potentially be an advisor for a startup and get a little something out of that. They have no idea how these things work, and I feel that we need a lot more of that. I feel that there's we do have a lot of expertise and experts and leaders out there in the world in all kinds of industries. So again, I really appreciate your story. It was very powerful, and very moving to just see someone coming from the backgrounds that we come from, right, and do all the amazing things that you've done, and very interesting. How to me it was very, very interesting when you said that that the journey basically of exiting a company is sort of like starting a company all over again, in terms of how this was all great, but let's look back at the problem again. Are you really solving that problem, right? Which at the end of the day, it's all one of the things that I talk the most about with founders. Like, do you really have a problem, a big problem to solve?
Yeah.
That is one of the main things investors are looking for. So I really, again, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time and being here and share your amazing story.
Thank you, Angel.
Thank you. And one last question before we go, and this is something I ask everyone. Just a piece of advice for any Latino founder that's listening to this right now, who's at that very bottom of the ladder. First check, no track record, just the conviction, right, of who they are and what they're building. What's one thing you'll tell them?
One thing I would tell him is just, keep pushing and take the shot. A lot of things that I've been able to do is because I actually took that next step. I reached out, I followed up, I actually went to the thing that, someone else didn't show up at. So it does take that extra step, but I think if you continue to do the things and move in that motion, it'll eventually result in something, because a lot of life, regardless of whether it's at work, it's about showing up, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
In relationships, in for family, for friends, for work. So it's just showing up and taking that extra step. Like it's just doing the things that you need to do to keep things moving forward. So as long as you're moving it forward, maybe some days you might not get traction, the next day you are. I remember when I had my startup, I always thought, one day I'm like, oh my God, I've done it. I've reached the $1 billion mark. No, the next day I was having to lay off people, but then the next day things turned around. So
Right,
it's
right.
just got to keep pushing and just continue to move things forward. And that's what I would say, even if it doesn't seem like it is.
Thank you, Laura. That was amazing. Thank you so much again. And to everyone listening to this was The Corridor, the podcast where we basically interview investors, founders, builders, operators, and anyone in between that's building in the venture corridor of the Latino community. So again, thank you, Laura, for being here.
Thank
And
you.
enjoy Hawaii as well.
Thank you. Yes.
Very nice place.
All
Thank you.
right.